So I'm not sure if Jim Hopson heard this earlier. We'll bring him in, Canadian Football Hall of Famer, longtime president of the Rough Riders. Good morning, Hoppy. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. We got a lot to unpack with you this morning. We're anticipating at 11 a.m. the announcement of Canada West canceling all fall sports. Your role with the U of S, can you explain what it is and your thoughts on this news, if you don't mind?
I'm the chair of the Husky Board of Athletics, so we're there to basically support and provide some governance to the sports programs at the U of S.
So, we saw Dick White taking over, succeeding Graham Brown last week as the president of USports. So you're with a single team. Dick's overseeing all of it, and he's a good friend of both of ours. How much for university athletics? What's it been like in the last 88 days?
Well, it's really been topsy-turvy for the U of S. We had our first meeting really in May, and by that time we were really into the pandemic, and of course we had reports on what they thought was going to happen. The U of S is a large university with very diverse and multiple sports programs, so a lot of athletes involved. We're talking about coaches, we're talking about trainers, scholarships. There's just so much there, and so it's going to be very difficult for them to have any kind of a year this year with with social contact and everything else. So it's a big deal, and it really impacts a lot of lives, not just the athletes, but all the people that enjoy university sports and all the families and friends and so on. So having a tremendous impact on amateur sport as well as professional.
Well, Jim, you spent 30 years as a school administrator in between your time with the Riders. I want to ask you this. Sports has meant so much to your life and all of ours, yet you've seen the other side of it. Are the sports people putting too much importance on return to play versus, when you hear this, sports shouldn't be a priority now? Where do you sit on that?
Well, I think it is a priority. I'm not saying that it's more important than education. It isn't, because, and we all understand that. But one of the things I learned in education was that if you wanted to have good schools, if you wanted to have successful students, you need to have strong extracurricular programs. And that's not just sport. That's music and drama and so many other things. But, the research is pretty clear. If you want to have a good predictor of a student's success later in life, their transcript is something to look at, but more importantly, look at their involvement in sport and extracurricular activities. So I think it has a tremendous bearing on the well-being of students, the well-being of schools. There's just that need for an outlet for the energy and enthusiasm you have and so on. So if there's no sport this year, there will be training and there will be other things, but if there's no games and no competition, that'll have a big impact on the life of the school, the universities, and certainly the athletes. No doubt about that.
So, of course, football's football, as we say, whether you're playing USports, NFL, NCAA, NFL Europe, it all is kind of intertwined. We're seeing that, right? And, one comment, it's on my blog this morning, column that was written out of the tunnel. I didn't write it, but a writer of mine did. If there's no football, Canada West, or across the country, is there a point of even having a CFL draft next year? So this trickles up to the CFL. What's your take on what the pro-Canadian League is facing?
Well, that's a good point about the draft. How can you have a draft when you're going back for a full year and you don't see the most recent work and play and so on? It also have impact if you think about it on the scholarships and the roster size, because they're talking about allowing all of the athletes to have an additional year of eligibility, which will have an impact then on recruiting and the number of new students. And so it's got ripple effects right across the country. It's going to be really interesting to see where the CFL goes. The further we get into this, the less it looks like we're going to maybe have a season. I know they're still hopeful they can get some games in this fall. And I know other pro sports are coming up with some unique ways to address it, the NBA, baseball, and so on. Although baseball seems to be struggling with the whole salary issue now, and the players don't seem too keen on taking any cuts. So Yeah, it's really throwing everything for a loop. A lot of sports executives are saying with the CFL, let's just call it off and regroup and get through this year and then come back strong next year. But I know there is a tremendous urge to have a product and for the players to play and so on, but a lot of hurdles to get over.
Jim, is that a real possibility that you'll give the seniors a year of eligibility, much like you would on an injured season, things like that? Is that something that's got some legs?
I think there's been a lot of discussion about that, and certainly we do redshirt athletes when they get injured or before the season or right at the beginning and give them an extra year. And so through no fault of their own, all of these athletes, if they do not get an extra year, will lose a year of eligibility. Right now, I know they're not talking about losing scholarships and that sort of thing, so that's important. And how many would actually do it, I don't know, because they may have graduated and want to move on with their life and so on. But I think that is certainly something that's been out there for discussion and will certainly be seriously considered.
We do have a question from a viewer, and I'm going to end with that. I just want you to think about it. Jim Hopson, do you have any funny stories about Ron Lancaster back in your playing days with the Riders? I know you have a few, so just be thinking about that, Jim. I know you got a few. I've heard them. But on the CFL, would you like the opportunity as a reset? Because I do think we need it. You know what I'm talking about. CFL 3.0, just a new CFL in terms of contracts, business, and all the rest. Would that be beneficiary, do you think?
Well, it might be necessary, given where we're at with the losses that are going to be incurred and that are being incurred right now. Possible government funding, strings attached to that. So it could be that there's no choice, and you have to come up with a new game plan to fit the new reality. And I just hope we get the chance. It would be a terrible thing if we can't bring the CFL back as soon as possible for the country. And of course, we're literally hundreds, thousands of players and staff, and on it goes. It's a big business, and I think that's one of the things that got lost in the discussion was we started talking about it as only a game and football players and so on. But the reality is the 9 teams plus the league office generate a tremendous amount of economic activity in the country. There's a lot of spin-offs within the communities, and the Grey Cup itself is a very big deal. And we kind of lost sight of that. And we've talked about the importance of other core businesses in the country and keeping them alive. And the restaurants are coming back, and hopefully most will make it, but we know that some aren't going to. And so I think it's a business that needs to be saved. It adds to the fabric. It adds to the quality of life, I think, in the country. And so it's important. But what that kind of support looks like, I don't know. And I haven't heard much lately about it. So it seems like it's kind of on the back burner.
Well, I heard a lot of things over the weekend. Maybe I should call you later for because they are working on it, which was pleasing to me. But one thing I did hear this weekend from a pretty big name in Canadian football was if the CFL dies, Canadian pro football dies. Or sorry, Canadian football dies. And when you think about it, if young kids don't have anything to aspire to at the pro level, why would you not go to 4 downs in RMF, Mighty Mites, high school, college? Because the NFL is what you're aspiring to. I actually think that makes sense. It hurt, but I could see it.
Yeah, that's something that really hasn't been talked about, but the trickle-down effect would definitely are starting, of course, with university football. And the kids are still going to want to play football. Most kids know starting out when they're playing in minor and high school and so on, they're not going to go to the pros. They might have a dream and keeps driving them, but they play because of the love of the game, because of the camaraderie and so on. But it definitely would have a trickle effect on football in general. And you make a valid point. If we don't have a 3-down pro league, then why don't we just play 4 down and we're all the same in North America, especially with the number of Canadian kids that are playing down in the States now at the college level. And the numbers are very big. And we hear about some of the brighter lights at the Division I level, but we've got kids playing at the Division II, Division III, and there's quite a number that are going down every year.
Growing every year. So it's from John in Winnipeg. He says, Jim, any funny stories about Ron Lancaster back in your playing days with the Riders? What do you got?
Well, I have many. A lot of them I can't repeat, of course. But Ronnie was a character. He had, he just had a bigger than life kind of personality. He had a story for every occasion, and he loved the kibitz. He loved to give it, and he also got it back many times. I think of myself, and the one story that I always tell is that we were playing at Taylor Field, and the old Taylor Field, and Leif Pedersen and Steve Mazurek were rotating at receiver and bringing, I was going to say bringing plays, but they weren't, because Ronnie called all the plays. They just rotated in. But anyway, John Payne got in his head to send in a play, so he sent in Leif Pedersen with a play. Leif came into the huddle, and we were waiting, and Leif said, Ronnie, John says to run, and that was as far as he got, and Ronnie looked at him and says, get the F out of my huddle. And Leif started running back to the sideline. John waved him back in. Leif came in, took one look at Ronnie, turned around and ran to the sideline. We played one man short that play, and John never sent another play in. That was the first and last time that he did that, because it was Ronnie's offense, Ronnie's huddle, and we all knew that. But he was a character, and he let you know what he was thinking, and he had a line for everything. And Frank Landy named him Keebler, and if you're familiar with the Keebler cookies, or Keebler Cookie Man down in the States, and he's a little guy and short, and so Frank would call him Keebler. He didn't like that very much, and he let Frank know, but that's the way Ronnie was.
I think I'm going to start calling Mark Mueller that, just to keep the traditional. I'm sure Mark would love it. Larry's it might fit Larry better, but just a couple of comments from Brady in Saskatoon. Jim Hopson is the GOAT. He would make a phenomenal commissioner for the CFL. From Mike in Ottawa, Jim is our hero. Thanks for everything you did. See you soon. From Mike in Ottawa. Was there not a story that you stepped on Ronnie's foot, or was it George's in a back pedal?
George's.
Yeah. What happened there?
Oh, geez, my first training camp, and I'm a raw rookie from the Regina Rams, and I certainly wasn't on anybody's radar to make the team or anything like that. And I'm just trying to stay out of trouble and do what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'd been in camp a few days, and we were practicing some offensive drills, and I was doing my pass blocking, and I backed up a little too far, and I stepped on George's foot. And it was the first thing George ever said to me. He looked at me and said, "Rookie, stay off of my feet." And that was it. And but I was happy that at least he said something to me. And it's funny, that happened in 1973, so a very long time ago. And George Reed, to this day, still calls me Rookie. So, and I'm happy when he calls me.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I call him Mr. Reed.
You're just happy he calls you anything. We all are.
That's right. Yeah, he and if he thinks I'm getting a little too full of myself, he likes to call me Big Time. So that's the message from George.
Gotcha.
Hey,
All right.
Big Time.
Jim, this has been outstanding. Thanks for catching up. I appreciate it. Thanks for the message on our 1-year anniversary show, too, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you. Appreciate it, and all the best as we go forward.
You bet. Canadian Football Hall of Famer Jim Hopson joining us today.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.